Hi guys, it's Lucy. So this week I wanted to talk about a new Haruki Murakami book that I finished. It's one of his latest ones published in 2018 and it's called Killing Commendatore. And this book, actually, just on a superficial level, I was reading it without the jacket and I thought the hardcover by itself was very cool. I think this is supposed to resemble an iris or like the pupil, the iris and the pupil, and then the background is the moon, which is very cool. Um, this is one of my favorite, if not the favorite so far, stories that I've read by Murakami, and I think if anyone has read his other stories, you would recognize similar themes throughout, but they are much more, I think, mature or well rounded in this story versus anything else, just because I think the narration is a little bit more full around the edges. So the usual themes like a dark hole in the ground, I think in some other stories it might have taken the form of a well, missing cat, and this play of reality versus fantasy and diving into a dream world from reality, so that cross into another world and the tangibility of the unreal things playing out in the fantasy world having an effect in the real world, and the back and forth, the deep-seated, like something about the past that's happened a long time ago that is haunting the present, and that has been a theme in other stories as well. So all of these things occur in this story as well in full form. And what's new in this one that makes it a little bit, I think, more palatable for, say, a general reader or someone who's never read one of the more fantastical Murakami stories is the fact that it connects. There are elements of Buddhism or priests or shrines, so there is some sort of a religious aspect that makes all of this fantastic occurrences, these mystical things, just a little bit more understandable or relatable, just because of that religious element. So I found that helpful. I'm not sure if that was on purpose to to help people connect the dots better for the story, but I enjoyed that aspect of it. I thought it made the storyline much more smooth than stories that I've read in the past, that he's written, decades ago, that are just purely jumping back and forth, reality and fantasy without any sort of resemblance to reality. There is it's much more of a mind bending exercise to read and enjoy those books, I think. But this one, very smooth ride, and the storyline is much more, I would say, like on a on a on a single strand, versus some other stories it might be really too jumpy. So this one of the things that he does in this book that he hasn't, that I don't really notice him doing, is that I feel there is much more a voice of a narrator beyond the protagonist, even though the story is written in first person, who is a painter by vocation, and he paints portraits, and the story is from his perspective. But there's a side character, who is the Commendatore. So he is actually like a little an old man in a painting that this painter has found in this house that he's living in, that was previously owned by another painter, an older painter. So this the characters on this painting come alive, and one of these characters is the Commendatore. He has a voice of his own. He has an idea, a fake, or someone from the fantasy world. But through this particular character, I feel that Murakami is able to express more of his own views through his mouth. So that was a very interesting addition that I noticed was new compared to the other stories I've read so far. I have marked a couple of quotes that I think is very unique. It makes Murakami very enjoyable as a reader because he puts together very strange turns of phrases and metaphors, similes that are quite unique but hit the post. As in, you understand what he's trying to express intuitively, on a very intuitive sense, immediately, even though these are probably things that we've never really saw anywhere else. Like, they're not references, and we probably have never made the connections in our own minds. So I wanted to maybe just read a few short quotes. Some of them are humorous, some of them are more serious. So this one is a little bit more humorous. This one says, "All minivans look identical to me, like cans of tasteless biscuits." And I think if we think of suburbs, that's exactly the feeling, or like a Costco parking lot situation. This one is a little bit more serious. He's talking about dream versus reality. He says, "People can accomplish anything if they want it badly enough. There are channels through which reality can become unreal, or unreality can enter the realm of the real, if we desire it that strongly, deep in our heart. But that doesn't mean that we were free. It might demonstrate quite the opposite." So it's at the very end here that really hits the heart, because we get preached a lot about this, making dreams a reality, and that it can be done, this and that, but connecting that idea with the idea of freedom, because if we just take the self-help BS, it is supposedly a freeing thought, that we have control over our lives. But when he connects it this way, saying that it doesn't mean that we were free, it might be the opposite, it's kind of a scary twist, almost like a dystopian view of what happens when dreams are real. Okay, and moving on, another quote, he says, "Artistic creation, I thought to myself, those words had a pull to them that drew all the silence in the vicinity into a single spot." And there's another one. He says, he's having a solitary sleep beyond anyone's reach, like the Spanish gold resting on the floor of the Irish Sea. This being a reference to the defeat of the Spanish Armada off of the coast of England, and the idea of gold resting on the ocean floor is actually quite peaceful. It's almost like as it should be. No one is disturbing it, and that linked to a deep sleep is quite interesting. And he's making this reference having earlier talked about reading about the Spanish Armada, maybe like a couple hundred pages back. So he has these links throughout the novel that are referencing each other all over the place, and it's just it's very enjoyable to come across these types of metaphors or similes recalling each other. And in this one, he's talking about small talk and the maybe not really the excruciating aspect, but I think we can all understand. He says, "Like a summer shower, our words were sucked up the moment they struck the parched soil of reality." This other one, he's describing a character. So Menshiki, this really stylish neighbor, let's just say. He says, "Menshiki behind the wheel of a Toyota Prius was as hard to picture as a leopard ordering a salad niçoise." So this is one of the humorous quotes, because Menshiki is a very purposeful guy. I suppose you can imagine him eating a steak, which can be thought of as the gastronomical opposite of a salad niçoise. So he drives a Jaguar versus what's being mentioned here is a Prius. Not sure if Prius versus Jaguar would be the same as a salad niçoise or a steak, but that's my understanding of this metaphor. And this one, he's talking about a smile. He says, "It was as if a ray of sunlight had shot through a crack in an overcast sky to illuminate one special spot. It was that kind of smile. So I think that was quite a special description. And I had another quote that was marked to talk about the theme of fantasy versus reality. And I think this describes his own views on the subject as well. So through the story, the quote is, "Accurate knowledge does not improve people's lives. There are plenty of things in history that are best left in the shadows. The objective does not necessarily surpass the subjective. Reality does not necessarily extinguish fantasy." I think there's a lot to unpack there. That could be like a whole essay. But that was just said through a conversation, I think, between the characters, or as a thought of the protagonist. In another quote, this is speaking through Manshiki, but I think as an author, Murakami is someone who does this. So the quote is, "Instead of a stable truth, I choose unstable possibilities. I choose to surrender myself to that instability." When I read this, I really recalled some of the short stories that I read, because I felt that was exactly what he was exploring, the instability of reality, really, and the possibilities of reality. Same thing. So that's my mini spiel about how much I enjoyed Killing Commendatore. I really think it is one of the best Murakami stories that I've read to date. When I've read more, I think it would be really cool to do a collection type of video and sort of categorize them and rank them in, what in terms of themes and the order that I understand them, or maybe on a continuum of fantasy, just completely out there. I don't know. I have no idea what's going on, versus a solid story line with a plot, and like an actual novel that people, normal people, can follow and enjoy. I think that would be the sort of continuum that I would find helpful as a reader starting out, because I think by now there are dozens of Murakami novels out there, and it could be a bit of a guesswork as to where those books lie. Someone could really like the out of the world aspect of his stories, and someone could really like the more storyline based stories, like me. So, well, I think I could do both, but it would be nice to know what I'm picking up at any moment. So I think that would be a very interesting discussion. If anyone else is a Murakami fan, maybe leave me some titles that you think Killing Commendatore is more related to versus some of his other works. Otherwise, I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.